Wait a minute. Before you adjust your speakers, that's all you're supposed to hear from this EV6 GT from Kia. Welcome back to the Auto Insider, where you come to find out what's new, what's hot, and what's not in the automotive industry. We finally got our hands on it, the 2023 Kia EV6 GT. Now, we lose a little bit of range with this extra performance, but we don't miss that range at all. So here we go. This is the Kia EV6 GT in its element. So most EVs are for environmentally friendly purposes, saving on gas and energy, but this EV6 GT is just as fun to drive as it is good at saving your money at the pump. And you don't spend any money at the pump, so fun is to be had in this EV6 GT. The acceleration and roll holding are as good, if not better, than any other vehicle I've ever driven, aside from a real sports car. So for the record, this is an all-electric, almost sports car. And you don't have to buy gas, but you do have to buy power. So first experience, we're sitting out here in this parking lot, behind this building, behind these shrubs. How do you feel? Would this be something you feel comfortable with in your car coming out to charge it?
No. I mean, not to say that this is kind of a shady area. It's not. We're at the Battery.
In Atlanta, where the Braves play baseball.
But it is kind of tucked behind a parking deck. There's some random van across the way, and you know, it just doesn't seem well traveled necessarily. So yeah, I wouldn't want to sit here as a woman alone to charge my car.
And I asked that because one of the journalists that I know, Jill Simonillo, who writes for a truck blog, actually has an electric vehicle this week. And one of the points that she brought up was that she feels like the infrastructure in this country needs to be improved so that people will feel safer when going to charge their electric vehicle. So that's one of the things I have to agree with her. Like, this is something I don't know if I would feel comfortable with you sitting here charging, which is why we did put the home charging station in our house. Now, for most of my listeners and followers on social media know that we have leased a Tesla Model Y. You've been driving it since what, September?
August.
August. And you tell us about your Model Y. How do you like it in comparison to the other vehicles that you've owned prior?
Okay, so it is not the smoothest ride, but it is so fun to drive. It is really fun to drive. I don't know what else to say. I like to accelerate quickly, and it gives me all I'm looking for in that regard.
So speaking of that, you drove this car.
Yes.
You drove it for about, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes. We had a couple little stops in it. Driving this Kia
Yes.
EV6 GT. Now, we're not going to talk about range because this is the GT model,
Okay.
and the GT is not known for range. If you want more range, you can go with the standard EV6. So aside from the huge disparity in range on these vehicles, how do you feel about the drive of this Kia EV6 GT compared to your Tesla Model Y, which is more likely the competitor for this vehicle?
I think this drives more like a car. I always say that my Tesla drives like a go-kart, a really, really, really fast, like golf cart, go-kart kind of thing, as opposed to a real car. But this feels more like a car. I don't think when I drove it, and I wasn't playing with all the buttons over there, but it didn't have as much, acceleration, right, as the Tesla does. But of course, I have the performance model, which gives a little extra boost, but it gives up a little bit on the range. But anywho, yeah, so this, I mean, it's nice. I think it certainly has some pick up, but it's not necessarily as exciting as the Tesla.
And for the record, she didn't use the sport drive mode or the GT button. So
I will also say, while we are sitting here at this charging station, one of the things that I do like about the Tesla is that I can put on some Netflix, I can play games, or there are things that you can do to keep yourself entertained while you're sitting here to do this.
It does have, we're talking about that, though this vehicle does not have the onboard Netflix accounts and what have you for entertainment when you're sitting still.
Which is great fun.
It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto,
which I don't have,
which are wireless, which you cannot get in the Tesla. It also has only one wireless charging pad, which in the Tesla Model Y you have two. But you do have additional USB and USB-C fast chargers here, as well as fast chargers in the back, as well as a 120 volt outlet in the back to plug up entertainment tools. That alone, that aside, the infotainment system, if you were having to choose right now, you were going to go out, buy an electric vehicle, and you only had these two to choose from, the Kia EV6 GT or the Tesla Model Y Performance, what would be your choice?
I'm going to have to go with the Model Y. And I would say that because I've just had much more experience with that car. I don't know what all this car will do. I haven't spent as much time. I've had the other car for months. So while this car rides better, I still would have to give the edge to the Model Y. Performance.
There you go. From a Tesla owner who is not some huge EV fan. She's not a huge Tesla fan. She's not some huge Elon Musk fan. This is just a person who drives a vehicle from the perspective of how it meets her daily needs. We've never used a public charger in the Model Y because we do have the 240 outlet at the house, and it gets us from 20 to 80% every morning by the time we leave, so we haven't ever had to use a public charger. So this is for someone who, you're not somebody who is overly concerned about the environment, about pollution, and those things when you chose a car. This was more of a convenience of not having to buy gas,
yes,
and it was some new technology, and we just wanted to test it out.
Yeah, it's kind of an experiment, which I think is going well. But the one thing that was a concern for me was having some range anxiety, which I'm glad to say that we haven't had really an issue with that, so that's good.
But in the EV6, I guess it's only because we don't have a charger at home, and if you purchase a new Kia EV6, it does not come with a charger, so you would have to either buy a home charging station, or you have to invest in an accessory charger, or do what we're doing. We're here at a public charger, fast charging station with charge point, and it says for us to get from the 30% that we were at when we got here to a full charge to be an hour and 25 minutes. Now, we're not going to wait an hour and 25 minutes for the complete charge, but that's what it would take. So if you're considering an electric vehicle, just know this is part of what you do. And guys, or the spouse who doesn't talk as much and is not as engaging, just know that when you have to do this, it takes a lot longer to get a charge than it does to pump gas. So then you're forced to sit in the car, or you get the pleasure of sitting in the car with your better half while you charge. So now you get to experience the EV6 GT in the sport drive mode with the GT function enabled. Sport mode, GT. How did you feel? Did it feel more like the Model Y?
Closer. I think I would prefer it if it wasn't wet, but yes, closer.
But it's all-wheel drive. So you look a little bit excited.
Because I like the pickup. It's closer to the feeling of the Model Y. I will give it that.
So fellas, you don't need a car that bark and make noise and popping from the exhaust to have your lady in the car smiling. And for those of you ladies out there who love speed as much as my wife, you don't need a car that's popping and making a lot of noise.
Loud for no reason.
In order to have a lot of fun. And while we pointed out some quirks with the EV6 GT that other electric vehicles suffer from as well, and we talked about just how much fun and exciting this car is to drive, there are a lot of practical things about this EV6 that'll make it an enjoyable vehicle as well. So with the intelligent cruise control, we've gone ahead and set the speed that we want to keep. We've also set the distance that we want to keep from the vehicles ahead of us. We've turned on the lane keep assist, where it keeps the vehicle centered in its lane. And as you can see, without any input from the driver for short periods of time, this EV6 will keep itself centered in its lane, and it will follow the traffic. And you'll notice here that it's not really autonomous driving, because you can see the wheel kind of moving back and forth a little bit. So it's not perfect, but Kia, and it's giving me an alert to put my hands on the wheel, but Kia does as good a job as most automakers probably that I've driven so far with this road to autonomous driving. So as you can see, as this truck picks up speed, then the EV6 does as well. And this little feature here, when you apply the turn signal, is another thing I really like about the EV6. It's practical and safe. It shows the driver what is approaching from the left-hand side when you apply your left turn signal. Technology. But how does this EV fit your daily lifestyle? Does it have all the conveniences that you need? On this 2023 EV6 GT, we do have power remote rear lift gate. This is on the lines of an SUV, so you want to have good cargo capacity. Here below this floor, there's a little bit of capacity here for things under the floorboard. It's also where we keep that charging thingy. Why they gave us that, I don't know, but many of you, I'm sure, will find ways to use your EV6 to charge electronics, maybe at a tailgate. Another good reason for an SUV. But then you're gonna make those trips to the big box stores. You're gonna maybe go antiquing. There are things you're gonna wanna do with your electric vehicle that you did with your traditional gas powered vehicle. You gotta have capacity. So we have 60/40 folding second row seats. They're not powered, and they don't come back up from here. But as you can see, you can get tons of cargo here behind that first row. And when you're done loading everything in, it needs to be easy to walk away. And again, this is an SUV, a vehicle a lot of families are going to choose as your family vehicle for your daily commute. You're going to want to have comfort and convenience. Comfort is covered. You have reclining second row seats to get the position that you really want. We have cup holders here for our second row passengers, as well as 2 USB fast charging ports right here for their enjoyment. You have our AC and heat vents here on either side, so it keeps the airflow right to the backseat passengers, and don't have to worry about those vents in the middle being obstructed by book bags and things that we set on the floor. Also here, we have great headroom, which is hard to decide from the outside with that sloping roof line whether this is going to be a good backseat space, but never fear, it is. We also have heated outboard seats here on the second row, as well as your power window control. And as much as some may want to discount the sportiness and the performance of this electric vehicle in this GT mode, and very different than even its GT line brethren, this EV6 GT with these race-inspired seats and this suede-like material on the dashboard and the sportiness of this cabin reminds us that Kia built this vehicle as a performance vehicle with some practicality. We've had this Kia EV6 GT for a week now, and I have enjoyed every minute of driving this car, except for maybe those minutes that I spent in the EV Go charging lane waiting for it to charge, because it doesn't come with a charger. So I had to go someplace and get a charge. Aside from that, there's only one thing that I think Kia has missed the boat on this EV6 GT. It's here in the front. So when you're talking about an electric vehicle, there's no engine, there's no motor, there's no need for transmission, any of those things. So if you look at a Tesla, like Model Y, for example, which it'll be competing with, the Model Y has a frunk. The Kia kind of has a frunk, if we can get it open. But looks pretty crowded in there to me. What do you think? And then There is a little bit of storage, but very little in comparison to the Model Y. That's all the time we have today on the Auto Insider. But for more of what's new, what's hot, and what's not, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and if you have YouTube, click the subscribe button below so you don't have to miss any of our reviews as they come out. Also, download the SoundCloud app and you can listen to all of our reviews in their entirety at your leisure. This 2023 EV6 GT. Is it hot or is it not? This has to be the most fun electric vehicle I've driven to date. If I were buying an electric vehicle today, this one would be high on my list. The GT, that is. We like the EV6, but this GT take things to a whole nother level. Till next week, I'm Daryl Killian for the Auto Insider.